We all know that maintaining strong relationships with customers is vital for any business looking to succeed, but it's often difficult to keep customers engaged consistently to make a real-life impact on retention rates. That's where email marketing comes in. By means of this session, our experts will go over some tips and strategies for improving your customer retention rates through email marketing campaigns. Are you ready to get enlightened? Let's hear it for this session's moderator, Gabe Kovacs, VP of Marketing at Anne-Marie Skincare, who will get the session going, along with Brianna Miller, Director of Pro Tennis, and Angelina Webb, Marketing Executive. Give a big round of applause, everyone, as we start this panel discussion. Come on up.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So, yeah, we're gonna actually do a little bit different. We're gonna do a co-hosting panel here. Keep it nice and light, right before lunch here. So yeah, thank you so much for being here and hearing us talk about email marketing, because we all love email marketing that much. So yeah. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Brianna?
I would love to, thank you. I am Brianna Miller, and I am the Director of Digital Marketing and Demand Generation at Pro Tennis, which is a healthcare IT company based out of Baltimore. I am also an adjunct professor at the University of Missouri St. Louis, where I teach marketing, and I am very passionate about marketing overall, and I am really excited to talk about email and how it is still a very powerful tool.
Great. Hi, I'm Angelina Webb. I actually have over 20 years of experience in the life sciences or the healthcare area, so very different from my co-partners here. And so I've been focused over the time working with doctors as well as consumers and caregivers, and email marketing has been a critical tool for us communicating, especially post-pandemic, during the pandemic, and overall just in the world of healthcare, it's difficult to get time with doctors, as you can imagine. So I've also worked in advertising as well as marketing, so I'm going to bring some perspective from how we do creation of the emails.
Great. And my name is, Gabe Kovacs. I am in the D2C space, in e-commerce specifically. Got my start over at Beats by Dre headphones, moved on to start a new headphone company called Soul Republic. Since then, I've led marketing for sunglasses company Sunski, as well as Direct Buy, and now I'm in the skincare space running marketing for Anne-Marie Skincare. We're an organic, wild-crafted skincare brand that has been around for about 14 years.
Great.
So, yeah.
So I wanted to get started with a question of, is email marketing even relevant? I'm sure some of you are asking yourselves that, and the answer is yes. In fact, I saw you're going to see that we have some notes here because I looked up some stats, so just to make sure I have my stats right. In 2020, there is actually over 4 billion email users. And more importantly, when you're looking at the United States, 80% of people they spoke about go and check their emails once a day. How many people just check their emails once a day?
Once a day sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like once an hour at minimum.
Exactly. So that leads us to the next point of discussion amongst us, which is, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of email marketing? The advantages is it opens the communication with your customers, through a path that we know they're using, which I just mentioned. And in fact, I saw that there was a return on investment of up to $42 for every dollar spent on email. So it's really effective, and it allows you to really target, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit more, but allows you to really target your message to the specific audiences. So if you guys have any comments on advantages, then we can get into some disadvantages.
It's definitely still a very large component of my marketing strategy for my company overall. it's definitely one of those pieces. We have to have all the different pieces of our marketing strategy for sure, but it is such a powerful tool because you can hit the right people at the right time with a very specific message. So I think that's where there's such a great advantage with email marketing compared to some other ones, because it can be segmented, it can be very targeted, and very custom and personalized.
Yeah, and to build off of that, in the direct-to-consumer space, it is essential. It is the cheapest way that you can get your message out to your customers, because social media advertising is increasingly more expensive. Sending direct mail is also expensive. It's just the easiest way to get that out, and it's also the easiest way to test out campaigns. So what I do is I'll put out some ideas in a campaign and send it out to a segmented audience, and I'll use that and see how that performs. That can turn into a $25,000 spend on Instagram. You know what I mean? So it's a great way to see your results, because you're going to see the engagement literally in 24 hours from your audience. And the other thing is, it's really changed significantly in the past couple of years. I mean, Black Friday this year, how many of us looked to our phones to see what sales were happening on our email? I mean, it's standard. We're looking for those discount codes. It's a direct launch pad to get people from their devices to your website. And a lot of times an easy way to get those people to come to your website and retarget to them and kind of use that as a mid-funnel strategy as well. So it's essential to pretty much whatever you're doing, from sending out notifications, tracking notifications, if there's any order delays or anything going on with your order there, all the way to sending out different promotions and segmenting to your audiences. So it's not going away anytime soon, I'm going to say. And if anything, it's just going to expand more. And SMS is already expanding more into that kind of email space. And they're basically cousins to each other at this point in the direct-to-consumer marketing strategy.
And I would also say one of the big advantages is the tracking. You touched on that. Is the metrics you can get from it and the insights about what messages are working, what call to actions. What are the things that are driving engagement and conversions?
Absolutely. But it's not all perfect, right? Unfortunately, there are some disadvantages that we just need to be conscious of when we're going and doing our email marketing campaigns. First of all, making sure, and we'll talk about content development in a bit, but making sure that it's not appeared as spam. So, how many people do we send messages to and it ends up in their spam box? I mean, even normal emails to coworkers can end up in spam boxes. So, that's something to consider. There is actually another statistic I saw that there are over 330 million emails sent every single day. So it's a very competitive space. So we'll touch upon when some good times are to send emails, because that's how you're going to get retention, you're going to get open rates, and you're going to get eyes on your emails. Do you guys have any other disadvantage? There could be one thing I just thought of, sorry.
No, it's fine.
One disadvantage could be if you're buying a list. The cost of the list, depending on the size of your business, and the accuracy or inaccuracy of your list. So my personal suggestion, even though it may take time, is to build your list internally so that you're going to the right people. But again, I would love to hear from you guys.
For disadvantages, I think it is just that it is kind of I don't want to call it a game, but you do kind of have to play that game of making sure you're not sending too much, you're sending the right message to the right people. So there is a good amount of strategy that needs to go into it. We do, test into different segments, but I would say that, and I agree with the list you do. There is that, you feel like you could buy that list and get that easy way out, but it's often, is it accurate? And we also want to follow our canned spam laws. We also just want to make sure that these are people that want to hear from us, because it's, you don't want to send a message to somebody if they don't want to hear from you, because it could backfire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say from the consumer standpoint that might be a little bit different than the B2B space is email can get really noisy. our personal inboxes are filled with Bed Bath & Beyonds, filled with Wayfairs, filled with all these emails for so many sales from so many brands that we somehow were subscribed to. And sometimes you kind of fall into that promotions box on Gmail, and it can be very, very noisy and difficult to stand out. So I would say that's a disadvantage there, and there's a lot of strategies that you can do to really stand out compared to all the brands out there. I mean, Black Friday, again, I'm going to keep referencing that because it was so recent for me, and it's just the biggest, craziest time of the year. But we sent out emails every 4 hours on Black Friday just to cut through the noise, because we know so many brands are sending stuff out on Black Friday. So that's one thing I would just say is a disadvantage of email, is that it's just sometimes tough to cut through that noise, but it's, again, one of those things that you just have to do, and you just have to be smart about it.
So I actually wanted to bring it back a little specifically to customer retention, since that's what our session is about. But the goal and the benefits of using email marketing specifically for customer retention, and I'm excited because we do have all kinds of perspectives up here. From a B2B perspective specifically, we use email a lot for our customers, and they expect it and they look for it because we use it a lot for for educational purposes. So we're sharing the newest best practices of using our product, different trainings that we have coming up. They do want to know about our events, but we make sure it's very specific to our customers and differentiating our prospecting emails from our customer emails and not just sending everybody the same thing. So I definitely see a lot of success, and actually, at any time for some reason, our customers are expecting our newsletter and they don't get it, and I hear from the customer success team, and they're like, they didn't get our email, and I was like, so I'm going to look in to see what happened, and they accidentally unsubscribed at some point. But getting to that point that you are a resource that they are constantly looking for, and know that you're going to provide good value.
Yeah, and to build upon that, it really is, to your point, the right message to the audience. You really need to take a step back, and I think one of the talks I heard earlier, they were talking about it's not about me, it's not what I want to push to you, it's what do you want to hear from me. And so, really thinking about as if you're talking to that person one-on-one, and what are they looking to hear from or learn about, and what can you do to help them get that information through the email. Again, it's all about, if you want retention, it's about giving them what they want to hear about, in my personal opinion, and then they will come back and they won't automatically hit that unsubscribe button at the end.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. Giving people what they want. We are constantly trying to play magician,
Yes.
or sorceress, or whatever it is, or to try to figure out what type of messages are going to resonate the most with our audience. For me, it's what is going to get people to buy. And in skincare, it's so much about the customer journey. And I really look at the customer journey like each link is a different piece in the customer journey, and an email is just one of those links. And so, for example, how are you going to get people to buy their second product, their third product, their fourth product? With skincare, you're constantly buying new things. How do I get somebody to subscribe to our product and get a cleanser every single month? How do I get you to buy a mask to go with all these other products? Email is the best pathway for us to do so, and you can really personalize it. I know exactly which customers that I have oily skin, which customers have oily skin and purchased a product in the past 3 months. Which people that have purchased a product in the past 3 months that have oily skin would be primed to buy a mask. And I can segment to all of these customers, and even segment based off of who's the most likely to buy, who should get a bigger discount, what are different things that we can do to get those customers over the edge. So it's a piece of that and getting the right type of promotions in front of customers, but then there's all this educational stuff around it. How to get the most of the products when you purchase those items. So there's just a lot you can do on retention with email because you can personalize it so much. You can use all the data that you have based on the customer's behavior and interacting with your brand, and leverage that to tailor the type of messages that you're giving to them to hopefully get them to come back. Nobody likes that shotgun approach. when you just get that generic email that everybody gets. Great, cool. I get these Costco emails all the time about all these random things that I'm never gonna buy. The likelihood of me to click on one of those items to buy them is pretty low. But if I get something that's really tailored and targeted to me, and we all know this experience where you get an email or you get an advert on your social feed, and you say, wow, like, that's exactly what I was thinking about. That's going to get you to click on it. That's going to get you to buy it more likely than anything else. And a lot of times, it's those brands leveraging the information that they already have to try to be smart and personalize their content towards you. These are all just small pieces of the overall strategy and retention, but email just plays such a critical role due to the nature of your segmenting options.
Yes. However, there's one thing that I've lesson learned: do not bombard
Yes.
your customers. That, you know, it's great to have the segmentation. It's great to have the data. But one of the things, you know, over the years that has really been that lesson learned is don't send emails too often unless there's a reason, like Black Friday,
Yep.
you know, or you're having a promotion or something of that sort. Because, again, I mentioned 330 million emails every day. So they want to hear from you. You know, timing of a newsletter, they expect to hear from you at a certain time, or you really do have something new to say, is great. Thoughts about that?
I actually wanted to bring up, which was actually perfect timing, is how to bring in automation to do that. Because I think that is a great tool. You know, we always have so much going on. It's hard to remember to send out things. You know, every day we have things. But to keep those customers engaged on a regular basis. So I know I use automation a lot for different things, such as when we're getting closer to contract renewal dates, like triggering automations to start a drip nurturing campaign based off of the products that they have. So it's automated, but it is still segmented, and it's still our branding and our messaging. So the same way that I would do it with prospecting, when someone starts to enter our workflow and I'm trying to nurture them into becoming a customer, I'm doing the same thing in regards to customer retention. So I think there's a lot of great ways to do that, specifically for B2B in my space. And then you can also do it just based off of, you know, you've been using the product for our software for 6 months now. You know, you've been onboarded. Keeping that very consistent, and then they also know to look out for you, and they look forward again to your emails.
Another time that I did find, I also do work with nonprofits, and there's this annual event that's worldwide. It's called Giving Tuesday. If you don't know about it, please give to the organization or a local organization. So, you know, coming up with that schedule, if you don't have the automation, my nonprofits, you know, are very tiny. They just started last year. So I literally would just write a schedule for them. And this was the one time that when we looked like a month ahead of Giving Tuesday, the increase in the messaging that we were sending out obviously got more and more and more up to the day of Giving Tuesday, where, you know, we'd send out 3 emails that day because we just wanted to remind folks to, this is Giving Tuesday, please give, and having, we'll talk about content in a minute, having that call to action and making it easy for them to give.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear how you both use automations in your areas. For me, automations just make everything so much easier. Because sometimes it feels like putting out an email campaign is like putting out a magazine for the day. And for our audience specifically, we deal with, our sweet spot is 50 to 65-year-old women in the skincare that are looking to buy skincare products. And they love to read, learn about the sourcing of the products, learn about the ingredients of the products. And so our emails are a lot longer than traditional brands are. And I've worked for other companies that have younger audiences, and our content is longer. We'll talk a little shorter, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But to automation emails, we use automation emails to remind you that you have things left in your cart. those are not emails we're manually sending out. Those are automated. If you don't buy something, you're going to get another reminder in 24 hours, and you're going to get a text in an hour. So we're constantly trying to stay on top of that. No matter what type of product you buy from our site, I have post-purchase flows that you're going to get. You are obviously going to get, those type of emails like, hey, your product is leaving, it's on its way, here's how you can track it, and things like that. But you're also going to get things like how to use these products once they arrive. Because there are certain moments in a customer's journey where they're most excited about your brand. And right after they put down their credit card and you're waiting for that product to come, you're super excited on that brand. And you will 100% open whatever we send you. So best practices, how to use this product. What are the steps to use to put on this cleanser and to do this beauty routine? Additional products that can go along with those products. So cross-selling is huge for us, specifically with automations. Bringing customers back, customers that haven't come to you for a while and haven't purchased anything. Having that on an automation. And I probably have around 60 different automations going on right now, and some of those automations have over 30 different pathways of things that can happen there, because it just makes it so much easier to manage the personalized content. And I will constantly come back to personalized content because that's what we want. That's what we really want these days. And as tech gets smarter and we have these smarter devices, we expect our messages to be tailored to us. I flew out here, got a text message about my boarding pass. That is a personalized message to me. And we expect those type of messages. We expect those type of emails to come. And that's not going to go away anytime sooner. So it's a lot of these automation flows, they are pain to set up because they take hours and hours and hours to really think through all the different possibilities and all the different pathways a customer might come across your brand, or things they might click on, or things they might visit, or things they might be interested. But they're really worth setting up because a lot of them are set it and forget it. You leave them. You let them do their thing. You check them once a month to see how the performance is, if there's anything you really need to tweak, or if you're A/B testing on anything specifically in there. But for the most part, you can kind of let those things go and adjust them once a year to really kind of fit with whatever type of messagings or any new changes in your brand and things like that. But if you're in the D2C space and you're not leveraging automations enough, I can't champion them anymore because they are critical to your email marketing program.
No, I was just saying, you touched on a couple of really great things in regards to personalization and A/B testing.
Yes.
So I kind of wanted to jump into some best practices.
Yeah.
Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things when you look at emails is, what is the subject line? It needs to be engaging. We've heard here earlier, you need to think about emotions. You want to make sure, again, I use subject lines a lot for the A/B testing to see what's resonating. I'll put those out for a week. I'll come up with maybe 2 or 3 to see what's resonating with which audience, and also personalizing it. I don't think we're going to say personalized,
Enough.
So the first and foremost is definitely the subject line, because you want that person to not want to only look at the subject, but also open it and then get into the content. Again, we've heard during one of the presentations earlier that attention spans are 3 to 5 seconds. That 3 to 5 seconds is your subject line. And then getting into the actual content itself and making sure, again, as I mentioned earlier, you're talking to that person as a human. You're not just giving them features and benefits, unless that's what they want to hear about. As Gabe has mentioned, his audience, there is a point in time where you do get into the features and benefits. And then also, I can't say it enough, call to action. Call to action is critical in the body of the email. You always want to make sure, if you're talking about retention, you want to make sure that they are going to do something with your email. Or if they are new to getting an email from you, the opt-in option, and making it, you want to get information from them, but you also want to make it as easy as possible. You don't want them to write a dissertation to be able to communicate with you. You want this to be open communication. So ask the information you need, and then as you communicate with them going forward, because they have opted in, you'll be able to get more information from them. And again, we talked about tracking, and then using that tracking information to adjust messaging going forward. So those are some of the key points. I also want to mention one thing that I came across which I had never heard of before myself, but I found it very engaging, was the 5 T's of email marketing. And just again, so I get this right, it's tease, target, teach, test, and track. And I really thought that was a very clever way to think about, what am I doing with email marketing and how do I approach my emails? But I would love to hear more.
I definitely agree 100% with everything you said. I guess kind of to build a little on it, additionally, very much segmentation. And I know we've mentioned it, it's just like personalization. It is the hot terms for this session. But thinking of different ways to segment. Is it whether they've downloaded a resource before, so there's someone that is more likely to download a resource when I'm from a B2B perspective, or attended a webinar. I'm looking at what products they may be interested, very often targeting based off of personas. So we're very much about those job titles. So we're targeting our C-levels, our CEOs, CTOs, but those are very different than those that are in charge of privacy and compliance at a hospital, or the pharmacist at a hospital. Those are all very, very different messages. So it's very critical to make sure that we're targeting and segmenting our lists of contacts correctly, as well as I think a best practice is, and if I'm not running a re-engagement campaign to re-engage unengaged contacts, I will always suppress our unengaged contacts. I don't want to annoy them. There'll be times where it makes sense to bring them back in and try to get them back in and interacting with our emails. But in general, I don't want to annoy them for the risk of them unsubscribing. I'm going to be a little more critical on when I choose to send to them. Also, calls to action, definitely a big one. Also, A/B test those key ones, whether it's book a demo, book a meeting, register for a webinar, or RSV for a webinar. Small things like that can have make a big difference. And I always make sure to have one call to action, unless it's my newsletter, that's a little different. But unless if it's not a newsletter, one call to action. We have those short attention spans, and we want to the goal is to just get them to do that one thing. So think about what that is. So, if I'm promoting a webinar, I'm not also including a couple blogs in there. I might follow up with a couple blogs and additional emails, but not all in the same email. So keeping that. And with testing subject lines, try out some emojis. Even if you are in the B2B space. Now, we don't want to use them like crazy and every single one, but we have, whether it's the calendar emoji, or if we're going to a specific trade show and there's like one we've used, there's like a little cactus one for like trade shows here in Las Vegas. Like small things like that get you to stand out in the B2B space in a appropriate fashion. So I try to integrate those and test those as well.
You both have said so many great things about segmenting and about email back. I mean, there's not a lot really to add here. One thing I will say though is, obviously we need to segment. We need to create those groupings of those customers that best fit those messages that we need to send out. But sometimes you might find yourself in the space of just creating a segment to create a segment. And I just want to say, look at exactly what you're segmenting and make sure what you're segmenting is actually going to help you and not be a waste of time. And I say the same thing for A/B testing, and I know we're going to get into probably talk about A/B testing shortly, but make sure that your segments actually there's a reason that you're segmenting it, and that you can actually get statistical significance out of that segment. If you're segmenting a group of 50 people, for no reason, and you get such a small group in your segment, it's almost kind of a waste of your time to put all that effort into putting out those type of campaigns to those tiny audiences. So that's the one thing I just want to add on about the segments and something. And another thing specifically about the call to actions in your emails is sometimes people get carried away by putting too many calls to action in an email and not focusing something on one thing. If your main goal is to get somebody to book a demo, if your main goal is to get somebody to look at this one product and buy that product, put that call to action in the right spot, which is above the fold, which is where you're going to see it right away. And make sure that you see it on your mobile phones above the fold as well, because that's the path that you want people to take. And if you have so many different links, you're just being distracting, and it's going to be very hard for somebody to know what's the real intent of that message. So that's just the one thing I want to say about the call to action. It's sometimes difficult to identify what's really the important thing that I want people to do here. Do I want people to buy this product and this product and this product and go to this and see the sale that's going on here? And by the way, we have this new product that we're launching with this brand going here, so read about it here. It might be difficult to decide that, and maybe your best bet is to break that up into separate email messages and send separate messages that are just really more focused to your audience, and that's totally fine. So those are the one things I just really wanted to add to the segmenting, because both of you did a great job in covering everything. Yeah.
But having worked in healthcare, one of the things we haven't touched upon when you're looking at the content, we keep talking about being focused, but we haven't talked about regulations. And I work in a highly regulated industry, and every single thing that I put out to the public has to go through an internal medical regulatory and legal review based on what the FDA says. So when we're doing emails, it's very difficult, and that because we have to have our prescribing information, which is extremely long, and we have to have a focus on what the message is. That's why it's important to have a call to action, not 3 calls to action. And then the thing that you need to think about too is loading time. So again, having worked in advertising, my creatives, they're amazing. They come up with these great ideas and these beautiful pictures, and at the end of the day, it takes too long to load, or it doesn't work on mobile. And we really need to work as a team to say, how long does it take to load? How are we getting the message? How are we meeting all of the FDA regulations? How are we meeting the regulations for sending emails, like having the unsubscribe and those types of things? So those are just other things to really think about, because I've seen some beautiful emails out there that we created, but my doctors haven't, because it took too long to load. So they never saw the content. So I just wanted to add that.
I actually kind of want to jump a little bit into the content creation, because that completely goes to what you were saying with the graphics. So we want to definitely integrate, beautiful images into it, but we need to make sure they load and they look good on desktop and they look good on mobile. But also just some best practices that you guys think for creating content for those emails that will capture attention.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So in the consumer space, we get to have a lot of fun. we can do kind of whatever we want in the email space. We do GIFs. When I ran marketing for Sunsky Sunglasses, we were a wacky sunglasses company that was all about selling fun in the sun. We put really fun things. We used to call ourselves a GIF company, because we'd put GIFs in so many of our emails. But you don't want those emails to be too heavy, because those will get clipped on Gmail. They will be slow. They might not load if somebody doesn't have the fastest internet. So I try to keep all of those images as small as possible. I don't let my graphic team send me images that are over 200K. I always say that is massive. I want my whole email under 500K.
Like that. Nice.
But sometimes you can't do it. And sometimes sometimes there's a really cool GIF, and it's a megabyte, and you just kind of bite the bullet and you say, you know what, I'm putting this GIF in because it's so great.
Yeah.
But so we get a little bit more wiggle room in the D2C space, but specifically your content, it's always going to have to come back to what resonates with your audience more. And I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but every email is different. A notification email is different than a sale email, which is different than a product launch email for us. They're all different. They all have different messages that need to go about. Sometimes you need a little bit more space to educate people on a product. Sometimes you're doing a roundup, talking about a collection. You have all these different points that you need to come across in an email. Sometimes you got a Black Friday sale and you just say, buy up to 40% off now. Go, click here. So it really depends on your email, but again, you got to test, you got to know your audience, you got to know really what works with them, and you also got to have creative that really ties back to your brand, because you want people to open that email and know it's you.
Yes.
You don't want them to open that email and guess who's sending me this email. And obviously, yeah, you have the from address and things like that, but sometimes you can get playful with that in D2C. Sometimes you could put your name as, Gabe from Anne Marie Skincare. It could be Anne Marie Skincare. It could be, whatever. But anyways, you just want to make sure that you're keeping consistent on your brand. Your emails are not too big and being bogged down, and you're getting the message across that you want to get across.
Yeah, you just stole my punchline.
Sorry.
Make sure you have your branding. Make sure you have your branding in there. Also, the personalization in your emails. What I've found is that they really want you to say, "Hi, Dr. Smith, how are you today? Thank you. This is from Angelina Webb." That there's certain ways we can personalize the message to them, and it doesn't take that much. And automation allows us to do that with our CRMs, and it really does. It just makes I know when I get the emails myself and it says, "Hello, Angelina," I just feel like a little warm and fuzzy, and it hits on that emotion rather than a more generic. But also the branding is important. You want to make sure that they know who you are, from the colors, from the logo, from your tagline, whatever part of the branding that you're going to include in there.
I love your touch on personalization, and there's other ways you can do it too. Obviously making sure that our data is clean and up to date, but we use a lot of times like company name as well. So making it seem, Hospital X can become the leader in privacy, or just making it feel more personal and them seeing themselves in whatever we're talking about. And in addition, with emails, always making sure that what you say in your subject line matches what you say in your email, because you're going to make a very bad impression if they don't. And that's always it just seems very sketchy, and you just don't want to go down that route. So making sure that we can be playful with our subject lines and tease things, but making sure that they tie together. And then also, when we're thinking about our audiences, there's kind of like, I find with my personas that are more like manager level or director level, I can get more detailed and have a little bit longer in regards to content. But if I'm targeting those C-levels, those CTOs, CIOs, CEOs, I want to get straight to the point. Their time is valuable, and I do not want to bog them down. They may download a white paper and read into it, but in that email, I don't want them to have to spend a lot of time. So in the B2B space, thinking about that as well, because they're making that quick decision versus those managers are the ones that are tasked with the job to find the product and research the product and the benefits, and they need more content than my C-levels who they want straight to the point. Where is it going to save them money and get the job done?
Yeah. So I guess off of the content, yes, content is super important, but also when you send is really important as well. So
bring that up.
do each of you want to talk about your strategies and how you decide when is the right time to send out those messages?
Sure. So I've seen in research that Tuesdays and Thursdays around 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Tend to get a better response rate or performance. So again, that's from research. From personal experience and working with clients and being the marketer myself, I want to be at the top of their email list. but I don't want to be at the top of their email list on Monday morning, you know, or I don't want to send an email on Friday when they're fatigued and all they want to do is go home and enjoy their weekends. So I think timing is critical. I think this is another place where you can do testing with your audience to see when you are getting the open rates, the click-throughs, and that's where tracking comes through and making sure that you have all the back end to track to see when they're clicking through, are they opening, where are they going exactly. And even if you do have a call to action, making sure you can follow them through to see, you know, if the call to action is to your website for, and in my case, downloading a copay card for their medication for a consumer, or a doctor doing it for their patient, did they look through other stuff? Because then that will drive me to send a different message.
Interesting.
So very different, I'm going to say, probably from the D2C space.
Yeah.
So for B2B, definitely not sending on the weekends because they're typically not going to be looking at their email. It is possible. I could test it, but anytime I have, it has not gone well. Typically, we do not send on Fridays either for the same reason, but I definitely like to test is the biggest thing. I do find that afternoons actually do well, and I think that's because most people are probably sending in that Tuesday morning, and I don't want to get lost in there. Kind of thinking about user behavior, so maybe like after lunch, they're coming back, they're checking their email, so sending on those times. But a big thing too was look at, most systems will let you send based off time zones. So we are targeting all across the country. And my last company, we were global, so targeting from Europe to North America, all the way to Asia. So looking at those different time zones and sending based off of them, because I don't want to send to somebody in the middle of the night. So those are some of the big things, but test. Your audience could be different than our audiences, so test, play around with them. You'll quickly realize what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is so different from D2C, and that's interesting.
And I'm like right in the middle because I do both sides.
Yeah.
So.
It's really interesting. I mean, first off, you don't send on the weekends. Sundays are some of the best performing email days for me. But I would say the timing really depends. It really depends. For the most part, I like to send emails in the morning. I literally will send a different email campaign every single day to our general list, but then we have all these segmented lists that we're sending to all the time through our automations, and the automation times really vary. It completely varies. Let's say you abandon your cart, I'm gonna send you an email 2 hours later. That is completely based off of that time. I'm not gonna send you emails in the middle of the night, so I make sure it hits you up in the morning, and you're not doing that. So that's one thing, but really what I found to work for our audience in the skincare space is we send a lot of morning sends. We do a lot of 6 a.m. Pacific time sends, and then sometimes if we want to do an additional last chance, or we have a promo that's going on, it's ending at midnight, we'll send a 4 p.m. send, and sometimes we'll do double, and you'll be surprised, some of those 4 p.m. sends do even better than the a.m. sends do. As far as revenue, because you build this urgency, you're sending people straight to your site. They come home, maybe they're having dinner, they're sitting on their phones, or things like that, and they end up buying something, when they get home from work and things like that. So, yeah, really, with the D2C space, you are trying to send really around people's lifestyles.
Absolutely. If I may sum it up a little bit, I think it's your audience, and if you're still learning, you need to track and you need to test. And that way, you'll find out what the best message is, how to segment, and when to send the messages. I'm just looking at the time and want to see if anybody has any questions for us.
Yes, hello. So great conversation. I really loved that.
Yeah.
And as I assume you use probably HTML mailings, right? What do you think of Mailchims, Mailjets, and that kind of tools for email marketing for more amateurs or just businesses that don't have resources to invest in HTML email marketing? Thank you.
I can
Yeah,
do this
sure.
one. Great question, first of all. Sometimes it's a lot easier to use drag and drop editors to just get the thing done. At the end of the day, the most difficult part is putting your storytelling together or putting your messages together. And I don't like to waste all that time trying to figure out pixel pushing, how to make this box this, how to get this color. And a lot of brands or companies don't have the internal resources and a dev team to get all of that done and have it tested on all the different devices. So I'm all about MailChimp. I'm all about those tools to get things done. We currently use Klaviyo. I love Klaviyo because we've built out our own personal templates that we know work across all the devices, and it really limits the time on designing and just lets us focus on the content.
Yeah.
So 100% I say leverage those tools.
I agree 100% as well. We use HubSpot at my company. So they have templates that, there's their standards. We create some of our own that we can reuse to save time. You can buy some on there. So yeah, it's all about saving time. And I know that these are mobile optimized, and I don't have to waste our time on that either, but I've used MailChimp as well. So if I had the resources to create these amazing things from scratch, I would, but yeah, you gotta leverage the tools and the resources that they offer.
Great. Yes?
Thank you both, or I'm sorry, not both, but all three of you on the wealth of information and sharing your experience, especially in a highly regulated space. So my question is more geared towards a biopharmaceutical company, where, as you know, we target or have different marketing approach based off of HCPs, patients, or payer, right? So there's different approach for all of those. So this question is specifically for the HCP marketing.
Sure.
So we basically target doctors that have, I guess, a roadmap of the publications that they're gonna plan to publish in certain dates, right?
Okay.
And we see them as our key influencers, right, to other HCPs. And it would be nice to kind of get a good understanding of the relationships based off of what they, them being a key influencer, right? Having a influence map and getting a good understanding of who are their key influencers based off of the segments that we're targeting. Do you have any advice or technologies that should be used related to any relationship mapping or any while you're trying to assess KOLs?
Sure. So I think that's a great question, and I've had the challenge myself. It's not related to e-marketing, so because it would be a whole separate area that we would need to discuss with third parties. So if you don't mind, can we take that offline, and you can just grab me right after the conversation, and I can tell you some of my experiences?
Hey, great content. Thanks for your wisdom. Quick question. I deal with a lot of attorneys, and my open rate is all horrible. Mostly because they're in court, or they're they're busy, what have you. But it's funny, during COVID, it went through the roof because they weren't in court. Right? Then it went right back down when COVID was over. Is it just the market, or is there something you think I could try differently?
That's a great question. So definitely, I don't know a lot about attorneys, but in regards to if there is segmenting that you can do, and I would focus a lot on that educational content. So if there are resources that you have that might catch their attention and stand out in their inbox. And then also, if there's others involved in the buying process for what you're selling, so whether that be assistants or office managers or whoever, to get in the door elsewhere. Because I know for us a lot with healthcare, which is trying to reach those C-levels, so CTOs, is extremely difficult. So probably similar to an attorney. So I'm trying to reach the other people that are going to influence it kind of indirectly. So then they start to hear about us, and then they indirectly will start opening our emails because they're hearing about us elsewhere. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I agree that sometimes, especially trying to get to a doctor can be very difficult as well. So understanding, the nursing staff that works with them and getting their emails and getting their attention to something, and then they'll communicate it to the doctors. Again, I can't stress enough your subject line. You know, even if they are busy, I know what I do when I'm busy. I star something, or I flag it to say, this is interesting, but I don't have time to read it. So again, I can't stress enough that it's that subject line, it's that 3 to 5 seconds that they're going and scanning their emails in between cases and saying, am I interested in this information? But I think also looking at other people that they work with that could talk to them as well, and you can get the message too, would be helpful.
Great talk. One question that I had was, aside from doing the basics of like DKIM, DMARC, and SPF to improve deliverability, what other recommendations would you guys have for keeping things out of the spam box or out of these specific tabs like marketing?
Yeah, so first off, I'm not the most technical marketing person, so I lean on other teams to help me manage the DKIMs, the SPF records and things of that sort. But the main rules that we follow are the standard practices, which is don't use subject lines that are going to throw you in the spam folder. Don't send to lists of people that you didn't have them opt into your email address, and you might get some spam trap, addresses in there that might, hurt your deliverability score in the future. And then the other thing is, have great relationships with your ESPs if you have them, because they will help you if you get in hot water. I mean, one time I ran a big giveaway with Lucky Brand Jeans. They brought me 500,000 email addresses, and a bunch of them triggered spam folder, and it just completely destroyed me. I was using MailChimp at the time. MailChimp froze our account because of all this, and it was a massive, massive issue. So just don't do the big massive lists if you don't need to, and just make sure that you're cleaning through those lists, and that the people that you're marketing to are people that want to be marketed to. In that situation, we had to get on with MailChimp. We had to do a bunch of list cleanup things, and they helped us really handle that. That's not really my expertise. Mine's more on the strategy of getting all these, getting purchases from your email inbox and just e-commerce as a whole. But yeah, that's kind of the advice I could give you there.
Yeah, I would definitely say avoiding those those free, buy now, so those spammy things. Yeah. But focusing, the list segmentation is going to be a big thing. Like I said earlier, suppressing those unengaged contacts, so you're really focusing on those that are engaged, are a big deal. Yes.
Hello, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much. I did I was affected by one of the things you guys said, mentioning how long it takes to build out these workflows, hours and hours and hours. Do you guys have any tips for building that out and limiting the amount of time that it truly does take to get that to work out?
Yes. I would say map it out first in a wireframing tool. Use like a Lucid chart or some type of wireframing tool. Think of like an org chart on how do things branch out, or just draw it out and really just picture that first, because sometimes, and I've been there a bunch of times, you build out this super detailed workflow and then you realize, oh, I gotta cut this branch off, I gotta cut this branch off, and then you do all this extra work for all these emails that you're not even gonna use. So just make sure that you plan all of that accordingly, and then look through it and see what content can I reuse in some of these. Sometimes there's just little chunks that you can do in different pathways, and just tweak certain things. Like I'm running a best customer sale in a week, and I'm segmenting my best customer sale based on best customers, and then based on customers that come from the influencer channel. And so they're essentially the same email. They just have different openings, but they're all the same. They still have the same image assets and things like that. So I would say just try to map out and try to see where can you be as efficient as possible in building these out, and see if you could duplicate content if possible.
And you don't have to have the most complex workflow to get started. Just a simple, couple email drip campaign, and then start building from there. So don't feel like you have to have the best of the best. You will learn as you go.
We have time for one more question.
Great. So A/B testing, what would be the reliable sample, like number of people that you send those tests? Why I'm asking, in like my business, real estate, we send stuff like the same emails, basically just different headers on behalf of our agents, and some have a sphere of 9,000 and some of 25 people. So how to test these?
25 would be hard, I would say. I would say you probably need a couple hundred at minimum,
Yes.
at least. I would definitely prefer more, a couple thousand. But I think the biggest thing with A/B testing is going to be that you test one thing. Because if you're testing more than one thing, it's going to be hard to tell what was the thing that made the biggest impact.
Yeah, we obviously have larger audiences, and so when we do our A/B testing, you know, it's a few hundred that we're sending those out to test. And it's in our case, we actually do two different at the same time to figure out which one we're going to send to the entire mass. So we take, you know, maybe 300 or 400 doctors, and they get A subject, and 300 or 400 doctors get B subject for maybe a few days. And then from that information, then we send to the winner to the masses.
Yeah. A lot of people won't agree with me on this, but I think marketers get too excited about A/B testing. Sometimes you just A/B test all these subject lines, and you end up with all these results of which subject line beat this subject line. And I've worked for many brands that just A/B test to A/B test, and they don't do anything with the data. And so if you're going to A/B test, have a path for what are you testing.
Yes.
And make sure that you're testing things. So for example, if you have an audience of 25 people, I wouldn't A/B test that. I would A/B test subject lines on groups that you feel you could really learn something. So, and that's really going to have to do with your brand. You can have statistical significance at 100 customers. It just depends what it is, or 100 people receiving that message. So, yeah, that's kind of my advice there, without going too deep down the A/B testing.
And just to close that conversation out, when we do our A/B testing, it's usually because it's a new campaign. You know, we're just trying to get that initial feedback, and you know, if we're changing something majorly, we'll do it again. But definitely don't do it like every single email or whatnot, unless you know, really look at the reason you're doing it. So I think we're going to be kicked off.
Yes.
But thank you so much. Really appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to our conversation. And
Great discussion.
We'll be around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.